You know, it's kind of crazy when you think about it, how much the whole world of cloud platforms has changed over the years.
Yeah,
I mean, like, we started with just like bare metal servers,
right.
then it was all about virtual machines.
Uh-huh.
And now it feels like we're in this whole new phase where so much of the complexity is like hidden away,
Really?
all to make things easier for us developers, which I am definitely not complaining about.
Yeah, for sure. I
Yeah.
mean, who wants to deal with all that low-level stuff if you don't have to, right?
Exactly.
Like, let's focus on building awesome apps, not messing around with server configs.
100%. And today we're diving into something that really highlights this whole trend towards simplicity.
Definitely.
We're talking about Heroku and their recent decision to officially support the .NET framework.
Big news in the development world, for sure.
Huge, right?
Yeah,
Because it could totally change how a lot of developers think about getting their .NET apps up and running in the cloud.
absolutely.
So for anyone listening who might not be super familiar with Heroku, it's a platform as a service, sometimes called PaaS.
Right.
Basically, it's like this layer of helpful automation that sits on top of the cloud infrastructure, taking care of a lot of the hard work involved in deploying and managing applications.
Yeah. It takes away a lot of the headaches of setting up and maintaining your own servers and all that.
Yeah, you don't have to be a sysadmin to get your app up and running.
Exactly.
And Heroku has always had this great reputation for being really user-friendly
Mm.
and supporting a ton of different programming languages like JavaScript, Python, Java, Ruby, the list goes on.
Yeah, they've always been pretty language agnostic.
But adding official support for .NET,
That feels like a real game changer.
it does, right? It's not just like adding another language to the mix. It feels like a much bigger deal.
Yeah, I think it is. I mean, .NET is such a widely used framework, especially in the enterprise world.
Absolutely.
So this move really opens up Heroku to a whole new audience of developers and companies.
And to be clear, this isn't something that's been around forever. The public beta just launched at the end of 2024,
Right?
and it became generally available for everyone to use in January of this year, 2025.
Yep, still pretty fresh.
Very fresh. And that's kind of why we wanted to do this deep dive today.
Makes sense.
We really want to unpack why this .NET support is such a significant development and explore how it can simplify things for .NET developers, make their lives a bit easier.
Definitely.
Especially since, historically, getting a .NET application to play nicely with Heroku wasn't always the smoothest process.
Right. There are definitely some workarounds involved.
So we'll touch on that history, too, just to give everyone some context.
Sound good?
Okay, so let's get into it. Why is official .NET support on Heroku such a big deal?
Okay, so if you take a look at the enterprise software world, right? .NET is everywhere.
It really is.
It's like this super versatile and reliable workhorse. You see it being used to build all sorts of things from like really robust APIs
Right.
and complex web platforms to those highly scalable microservices everyone's talking about these days.
Yeah, .NET seems to be able to handle pretty much anything you throw at it.
It can, and it's got this massive established community behind it. Tons of developers, libraries, resources.
Which is huge when you're working with a technology.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It means you're not out there on your own trying to figure everything out from scratch.
So given how widely used .NET is, it's almost surprising that deploying .NET apps on Heroku wasn't always straightforward.
Yeah, you would think it would have been there from the start,
Right.
but it wasn't, so developers had to find ways to make it work.
And you mentioned workarounds. What kind of things did developers have to do to get .NET apps running on Heroku before this official support?
Well, the most common way was to basically containerize the .NET app using Docker,
Okay, Docker.
and then deploy that Docker image to Heroku.
So an extra step.
Yeah, and some developers used community-maintained build packs,
Build packs.
which are basically sets of scripts that help Heroku understand how to build and run your application code.
Okay, so like instructions for Heroku.
Exactly.
Backblaze. Makes sense.
These methods worked. They got the job done,
Mm-hmm.
but they definitely added complexity.
Right, like you had to deal with Docker configurations or rely on these community tools that might not always be perfectly up to date.
Yeah, and it wasn't the same smooth, almost magical experience that developers using Heroku's natively supported languages were used to.
I see. So it was kind of a clunky experience compared to deploying, say, a Node.js app,
Yeah, exactly.
which goes against Heroku's whole philosophy of making things super easy for developers.
Exactly.
So this official support is all about bringing that same level of simplicity to the .NET world.
Precisely.
It's about making it feel like .NET is a first-class citizen on the platform. No more workarounds, no more extra steps.
Seamless native integration.
I like that seamless native integration.
That's the key.
So now developers working with C#, F#, Visual Basic, all the .NET languages,
Right.
and using frameworks like ASP.NET Core and Blazor,
Big ones.
they can all expect that same easy Heroku experience. No more messing around with Docker files and build packs.
Nope. It just works.
And it all ties back to Heroku's core mission, right?
Definitely.
Making developers' lives easier.
Simplifying the whole process.
And I actually found this quote from Gail Frederick.
Okay.
She's the CTO and SVP of Heroku.
Right.
And she said, and I quote, "With the next generation Heroku platform, we continue this leadership bringing forward the most robust practices to cloud-native applications and managing them so our customers don't have to."
I like that.
It's all about taking that operational burden away from developers.
Letting them focus on the code.
Exactly.
So it sounds like this was a real pain point for a lot of .NET developers.
It was. They loved Heroku's simplicity for other projects, but they couldn't really use it for their .NET apps without jumping through hoops.
So this new support basically removes that obstacle.
It levels the playing field.
Exactly.
So let's dive into the specifics. What's actually new here? What can .NET developers now do on Heroku that they couldn't do before?
Okay, so the biggest thing, and we've touched on this already, is native deployment.
Right, no more Docker, no more custom build packs.
You can now deploy your .NET apps directly using the Heroku CLI.
The command line interface.
Right, or through Git workflows, which a lot of developers are already using.
Yeah, Git is like the standard for version control these days.
It is, and it's great that Heroku just works with it seamlessly.
So it's the same process you'd use to deploy a Node.js app or a Python app.
Exactly. It's all consistent, which is great for developers.
No need to learn a whole new set of tools or processes just because you're working with .NET.
Nope. It's all the same familiar Heroku workflow.
So that's a huge win for simplicity right there.
Absolutely.
And for those developers who are all about building those modern interactive web experiences, using ASP.NET Core or Blazor,
Popular choices.
the fact that they can now leverage Heroku's scalability without any extra hassle is a big deal.
Huge deal.
Because ASP.NET Core and Blazor are kind of the go-to frameworks these days.
They are.
For building everything from those powerful backend APIs to those super dynamic client-side applications that everyone loves.
Yeah, they give you a lot of flexibility.
And the fact that they can now run smoothly on Heroku's scalable dynos.
Dynos.
Yeah, those are Heroku's managed container units.
Right, like little isolated environments for your apps.
Exactly. It's a really powerful combination.
It is, and to add to that, ASP.NET Core is Microsoft's modern cross-platform framework.
Oh, right. So Heroku isn't just supporting like older versions of .NET?
Nope, they're embracing the future of .NET development.
Which is smart.
Definitely.
And Blazor with that whole thing of letting you write web UIs using C# directly in the browser.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
It opens up even more possibilities for building really interesting web apps on Heroku.
For sure.
And we can't forget about simplified scaling.
Right? That's another one of Heroku's big strengths.
It's always been known for how easy it is to scale your applications.
Yeah, whether you need to beef up your dynos or spin up more of them to handle traffic spikes, it's usually just a single command or a few clicks.
It's almost too easy.
I know, right? And now that same ease of scaling applies to your .NET apps.
No more wrestling with complex configurations or anything.
Nope. Heroku handles all that for you.
Which is the beauty of a managed platform as a service.
It is. You focus on your app's logic and performance, and Heroku takes care of the underlying infrastructure.
You don't have to become an expert in server management or anything.
Exactly.
And this is especially helpful for apps that might see those sudden, unpredictable spikes in usage.
Like if your app suddenly goes viral or something.
Right. Or if you have a big marketing campaign launching.
You don't want to be scrambling to scale up your servers at the last minute.
Exactly. Heroku just handles it.
Smoothly.
And then there's the whole integrated ecosystem aspect.
Right. It's not just about running your .NET code in isolation.
It's about being able to plug your app into all these other services and tools so you can connect your .NET apps to Heroku's managed data services.
Like Heroku Postgres for your database needs.
Or Heroku Redis for in-memory caching.
Right.
And then there's the Heroku Elements Marketplace.
Oh yeah, that's a treasure trove.
It is.
Over 200 add-ons for all sorts of functionality.
Logging, monitoring, security, you name it.
You can basically build out your entire app ecosystem without having to set up and manage all these services yourself.
It's like a one-stop shop for developers.
It is, and it's a huge time saver.
Because who wants to spend weeks setting up logging infrastructure when you could be building features?
No one.
And it's worth mentioning that this .NET integration isn't running on Heroku's original architecture.
Oh, right. They've got that new platform.
Yeah, it's called the Fur platform. And it's built on those modern cloud-native technologies like Kubernetes.
For container orchestration.
And OpenTelemetry for observability.
Right, keeping an eye on how everything's performing.
But the important thing for developers is that even though it's running on this super sophisticated infrastructure behind the scenes,
it still feels like Heroku.
That same simplicity that everyone loves.
Exactly. They've done a great job of abstracting away the complexity.
So you get all the benefits of modern scalable infrastructure without having to manage it all yourself.
Love both worlds.
Okay, so let's say someone's listening to this and they're like, all right, I'm sold. How do I actually get started with deploying a .NET app on Heroku? What are the steps?
Okay, so it's actually pretty straightforward.
Hit me with it.
First things first, you need to install the Heroku CLI if you haven't already.
The command line interface.
Yep, that's your main tool for interacting with Heroku.
Okay, so you'll be typing commands into a terminal window.
Exactly, and you can do pretty much anything with the CLI.
Create apps, deploy code manage resources.
It's your command center for Heroku.
I like it.
All right, step 2 is to actually create your .NET application.
So this is where you fire up Visual Studio or whatever code editor you use.
Exactly. You can use ASP.NET Core or any other .NET framework you prefer.
And the documentation has some example commands, right?
Yeah, like .NET new Webo my.NET app.
Okay, so that creates a basic ASP.NET Core web application.
Right, and then you would use cd my.NET app to navigate into that new project directory.
Standard .NET stuff.
Yep. If you're already working with .NET, this will all feel very familiar.
Cool.
Then you need to initialize a Git repository in your project folder.
Because Heroku uses Git for deployment.
Exactly. So it's the standard Git commands.
Git init to create the repo.
Then Git at the stage all your project files.
And then git commit SM, initial commit, to make your first commit.
Yep. Version control is crucial for any software project.
Absolutely.
Okay, so now for the Heroku specific part.
Let's do it.
You need to create a Heroku application on the platform.
Okay, so this is where we actually start interacting with Heroku.
Right, so first you log into your Heroku account using the CLI.
Heroku login.
Exactly.
And then you create a new app.
Right, you can use a command like Heroku create my .NET app.
Okay, so that command basically reserves space on Heroku's infrastructure for your app.
Exactly. Gets everything set up and ready to go.
Awesome. And now, the big moment.
Deployment time.
Drum roll, please.
All right, so the command is git push Heroku main.
Okay, so we're pushing our local Git repository, which contains all our .NET code, up to Heroku.
Exactly. And here's the cool part.
Tell me.
Heroku automatically detects that it's a .NET application.
Way.
Yeah, and it handles the entire build process in the cloud.
So we don't have to do anything special.
Nope. Heroku's build system figures it all out.
Analyzes the code, figures out the dependencies.
All without you having to configure anything manually.
That's amazing.
It makes deployment so much smoother.
So once our app is built and ready to go, how do we actually see it running?
Easy peasy. You just type Heroku open.
And that opens our app in the browser.
Yep. It's that simple.
So from writing our code to seeing our .NET app live on Heroku, it's a really fast process.
It is. Heroku really nails that developer experience.
They do. It's all about minimizing friction and getting your app up and running as quickly as possible.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we've talked about the benefits for individual developers.
Simplifying deployments, all that.
But what about the bigger picture? What are the advantages of this .NET support for teams and businesses as a whole?
Okay, so from Heroku's perspective, this is a huge win for them.
How so?
It strengthens their position as a truly polyglot platform as a service.
Polyglot meaning it supports a wide range of languages.
Exactly. By adding .NET, they're basically opening their doors to a massive new audience of developers and companies.
Especially in the enterprise world where .NET is so popular.
Precisely.
So it's a smart business move.
Very smart.
And for .NET developers themselves.
Well, it's all about saving time and effort.
Right. Less time worrying about infrastructure.
Exactly. No more setting up servers, configuring environments, patching things constantly.
All those tedious sysadmin tasks.
Gone. You can just focus on writing code and building great features.
Which is what developers want to be doing.
Absolutely. It's all about maximizing developer productivity
And for businesses.
They get to leverage the power of .NET.
Which is a very robust and mature framework.
Perfect for building those mission-critical enterprise applications.
And they get to combine that with Heroku's scalability and security.
Which is backed by Salesforce, so you know it's top-notch.
It's a really powerful combination for businesses that need that enterprise-grade reliability and performance.
Definitely.
And it's not just for big companies either.
Right. Startups can benefit hugely from this too.
Because they can prototype and deploy their .NET apps much faster.
Without needing to build out a whole DevOps team.
Or invest a ton of money in infrastructure up front.
Yeah, it lowers the barrier to entry significantly.
Which is crucial for startups that are just getting off the ground.
Absolutely.
And there's also the integration with the Salesforce ecosystem.
Right, through Heroku Connect.
This is a big one for businesses that are already using Salesforce. Because it lets you sync data between your .NET apps running on Heroku and your Salesforce CRM data.
Seamlessly.
Which opens up a ton of possibilities for building those really tightly integrated CRM-driven applications.
Yeah, it's like having your .NET apps and your Salesforce data all working together in perfect harmony.
It's a beautiful thing.
It is.
So, zooming out a bit, how does this official .NET support fit into the broader trends we're seeing in the developer world and the whole cloud-native movement?
It feels like a very strategic move by Heroku.
In what way?
It's clearly a response to how the developer community is evolving and what they're looking for in a platform.
Right, like cloud-native development is exploding in popularity.
And by embracing .NET so fully, Heroku is making its platform as a service model much more appealing to those Microsoft-centric development teams.
It's like they're saying, hey, we get it, you love .NET, and we want to make it super easy for you to use it with Heroku.
Exactly.
And it bridges a gap that's existed for a while.
Yes. For sure, for years, a lot of those Microsoft-focused teams might have looked at Pan-Yes offerings and thought, this isn't really built for us.
Or it felt like too much of a hassle to get their .NET apps working properly.
Right.
But now Heroku is saying, nope, we're a first-class home for your .NET applications.
It's a big shift.
And it reinforces the idea that Heroku is all about innovation and always pushing forward.
They're not resting on their laurels.
Not at all.
I mean, they even announced those AI-powered tools back in December 2024.
Right, like managed inference with AWS Bedrock.
And they're constantly making improvements to their infrastructure.
So this .NET support feels like a natural part of that ongoing evolution.
It does. It shows they're committed to staying ahead of the curve and providing the tools that developers need.
And as of March 19th, 2025, this feature is fully available for everyone to use.
No more waiting.
So as we wrap up here, what would you say is the key takeaway for our listeners?
I think the main message is that Heroku's official .NET support makes it significantly easier and more efficient to deploy and scale .NET applications in the cloud.
It's about bringing together the best of both worlds.
Exactly. The power and versatility of .NET combined with Heroku's ease of use and scalability.
Whether you're a startup building a new product, a large enterprise with mission-critical apps, or just a solo developer working on a side project.
Heroku now provides a really streamlined and developer-friendly way to get your .NET apps up and running in the cloud.
And without having to become a cloud infrastructure expert.
You can leave all that to Heroku.
Focus on the code, let Heroku handle the rest.
Exactly.
So here's a final thought for everyone listening. Now that deploying .NET apps on Heroku is so much easier, what new possibilities does this open up for you? What can you build now that you couldn't build before? Or what can you build much faster and more easily?
I think that's a great question to ponder.
Because this development has the potential to change the game for a lot of .NET developers.
It does. It removes a major obstacle and unlocks a whole new world of possibilities.
So go forth and build amazing things.
The cloud awaits.
And with Heroku and .NET by your side, the sky's the limit.
It really is a great time to be a developer.
Couldn't agree more.
So thanks for joining us for this deep dive into Heroku's .NET support.
We hope you found it insightful.
And we encourage you to check out the resources we'll link in the show notes.
To learn more and get started.
Until next time, happy coding, everyone.
Happy coding.